NDP thinks that if we invest intelligently in healthcare, if we put the money, for instance, as I said earlier, into home care for seniors so that we keep them out of hospitals, reduce the burden on hospitals, that we can operate a system that gives us the services we need without this ongoing process of cutting. When you talk to the Ontario Nurses Association about their concerns with nursing standards, I talked to my sister who's a nurse and the sorts of pressures that they are put under. There's no doubt in my mind as to why people like John and others are worried about the healthcare system.
But then can you turn around and on behalf of your party, Peter Tabuns, say that under an NDP government there would be no healthcare cuts?
We see none. None.
You see none. But is that a promise or just
well, then
a guess?
Take our plan is no healthcare cuts. That's what we costed out.
Yeah, but plans can change. And I'm not trying to back you too far in the corner. I'm just looking for a straight answer. You can't guarantee it, though. Can you guarantee it? Can any government guarantee that kind of thing?
I don't think any government... No, just a second.
Well, okay. Well, Marisa says yes. Okay.
Well, the only thing a government can guarantee is a commitment to an approach and a platform that shows how it will be funded and a commitment to move forward on that.
Well, but that's a long way from a promise not to engage in any healthcare cuts.
Well, I can say, Dale, we're not going to be cutting healthcare.
All right, let me go to Tim Wally on that.
Sure. Well, all my colleagues to my right here have all been in power at one time or another, and I think for a long time the healthcare system has failed many people, and it's time for a new approach. And I think the Green Party has a new approach, and approach which I definitely encourage everyone here tonight to check out. Please check out our website at gpo.ca to find out more about our healthcare.
Can the Green Party guarantee there would be no healthcare cuts during a term? If
it's budgeted that we would have no healthcare cuts, and we have our detailed budget online as well, and people are definitely welcome to have a look at that. So that's
okay.
And Dan, I just want to add, I think that my NDP colleague and myself, we seem to share some of the same visions around allowing people to age at home and
Are you cozying up for some kind of coalition arrangement after the next election?
What I wanted to offer...
Just had to ask, okay?
I know, I understand.
No, what I wanted to offer is I think the hesitation that my NDP colleague is demonstrating is around costing. And what we have seen is that the platform of NDP came out in June, and the costing has been delayed and delayed and delayed, and the costing for the plan only came out a few days ago. And in that costing, there are so many examples. I can share with you one where it doesn't add up. So I think the hesitation is probably that I think the party is maybe not very clear about where the costing is for some of these great ideas.
Is it worse than the $14 billion hole you talk about when you talk about the progressive conservatives, or not as bad as that?
Well, clearly there is a $14 billion hole.
But the Liberals could not even justify the $14 billion hole, and it was in the Toronto,
I hope at home, if you're taking notes, you're writing all these numbers down.
Maybe I should share with you an example of what I mean. The example of what I mean is, for example, around post-secondary education, that the NDP promises to raise the per-student funding and to ensure money is available for tenure-track faculty. That cost is $1 billion. The costing that they put out is only $365 million. So there's a gap. Where's the money coming from?
Well, can you deal with that particular
I can say this, that Infometrica went through our costing, said that our costing made sense, that our projections made sense, and that I'm sure that you could go through the Liberal plan as well and find numbers that you wanted to spend a lot of time on. We costed it out. We're committed to making the spending necessary for post-secondary education and for health care. End of story.
It makes me nervous when costing comes out a few weeks before the election, as a voter myself. And the other thing is that as
well, you're not going to vote for the New Democrats anyway. We know that right now.
As a Liberal Party, what we have done
4 weeks before the election. What am I going to do with that? We have had a third-party economist actually look at the platform and ensure that it's fully funded.
We're very transparent with our costs.
Let me get Rita in on this, because at one point the alleged $14 billion hole came up. Do you want to defend or counter-argue that statement?
Sure, because our change book is fully costed, and
by whom?
The Liberals, it's costed by the same people who the Liberals go through that. There are 11.
But you all say that it's fully costed,
it's fully
right?
costed,
Well,
and the Liberals could not. And the Liberals.
Economics firm.
It just means
Yes,
reviewed
there
by
is
somebody
yeah,
who
and-
can add up tables of numbers.
But the Liberals could not justify those 14 billion numbers, and that was in the news.
Oh, was it?
Yes,
All right.
it
Well,
was in the it was in the
Okay.
Toronto Stat, and they
All
could
right.
not justify those 14 billion. But they have been in deficit 14 billion, and Liberals are the one who have doubled the spending in last 18 years, which in 136 years, 23 premiums it took them to the debt. They have doubled just in 8 years.
I think my PC colleague is suggesting that there's $14 billion of waste out there in government, and that's where apparently this hole is. And that's, I would challenge, where is that waste? I don't believe
to
you
borrow
have
a
$14
Toronto
billion
term, is there that much
of waste.
gravy out there?
And so if there's not that much waste, where will that come from? That means cuts in education, cuts in healthcare, cuts in culture, cuts in infrastructure, cuts in transportation. It's got to come from somewhere, and that's the big question.
No, we will find out of health and education, we will find 2% savings from the government spending. And also we will get rid of the waste, like $1 billion e-health scandals. And there are 630 boards, agencies, and commissions. We're going to review them. If they work, they stay. If they are broken, they will be fixed. But if they do not justify their existence, they will go.
Can I come back on that point? It's been raised, the boards, agencies, and commissions. You've been around Queen's Park for a while. Is there, dare I say it, gravy to be found there? Are there things there that don't need to be money there? Public money doesn't need to be spent? Is that a good
Dale,
place to look?
My sense, Dale, is we're talking about very small dollars when you're talking about that. When you look at the Conservative plan, they're talking about substantial reductions outside of health care and education. And frankly, when you're talking about having no cuts in health care and education, but cuts in other areas like Ministry of the Environment, protecting us from another Walkerton, children and youth services, public safety and corrections, that's where they've been talking about their cuts. I don't see that working. When I look at the Liberals, I've looked over the last few years and watched Dwight Duncan overstate his expected deficit so that when things come in under, he looks like he's done a good job. I think that fun with numbers is not confined just to the Conservatives. I think the Liberals have been great practitioners as well.
I'd like each of you to describe the state of politics as practiced in Ontario and tell me whether or not it really serves the public good. And I'd like to start with Tim Wally.
Well, as many of our viewers will know, the Green Party is in favor of good government, responsive government, true democracy. We're in favor of electoral reform. That's something that we've pushed for in the past, so that all Ontarians have a voice and they see their
Could you just answer the question?
Sure.
Does the way politics is practiced in Ontario now really serve the public good?
I think that a lot of, if you ask that question to residents in Toronto Danforth, I think that they would say, and many times, no. And that's what we're hearing in terms of the polls that have come out, and how the Liberals are doing, and how we anticipate we will be doing.
I'm talking about all politicians, really, I think.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you, Dale. I think that's one of the reasons, as a young person, that I got into politics, because I feel that I'm a very sincere, genuine person. I feel that I'm there to serve and deliver the public good, and you know, I think that people are picking up on that when they get a chance to meet me as well.
Marisa, describe the state of politics as practiced in Ontario and whether or not it serves the public good.
Dale, I'm a positive person, and for me, I see that politics is serving the public good, and we can always do more. We can always do more. But what we have done is we have brought foreign investment into the province. We are...
Oh, no, don't just go through a long list again. You see, there you go again. I just want to stop you there. I'm just asking for an answer to, I think, a relatively simple question.
Okay, thank you.
The politics practiced in Ontario today, does it serve the public good that well?
Yes, it does serve the public good, but as Tim mentioned, that when we're going out to doors, because of the credibility of what the Liberals have done last several years, they're not trusting. They say, we don't trust the politicians. But the thing is, as I've been here since 1999, and I have dedicated much of time helping people, but I could, as a personal level, could only help few few people or few families, but I understand the power of the political process that makes the difference in the life of people. And that's why I'm running, because I understand the issues, the concerns the families are facing, and they're desperately looking for a change. And only through this platform, through this process, I can help the community as a whole and the country as a whole. People can help through the political process.
Peter Tabuns, you've seen a lot of politics practiced over the years in Ontario. Is it really serving the public good that well?
Right now, no. It isn't, Dale. I think that the political direction of the province serves a fairly small corporate community far more than it serves people. It doesn't put people first. We saw that with the huge shift with the HST from corporate taxes being put on personal taxes. We see that with the Liberal energy plans, which are very focused on very expensive nuclear instead of investing more and helping people contain and reduce their energy costs. Right now, no. Politics in Ontario isn't serving people well.
Here is, no, I'm going to have to go on here. Brenda is calling on the line, and Brenda, what is your question for the candidates?
Hi, Dale. I'm very happy that you've make time for me.
Okay, well, let's get on with your question.
Okay, let's move on. My question for the candidates is that as a tenant in Ontario, tenants in Ontario right now are faced with guideline rent increases, where last year the guideline was 0.7%. This year, as I guess a backlash, it is I believe it's 3.4%.
Mm-hmm.
And tenants in general are being hammered with rent increases. Now, these are...
Okay, Brenda, let me stop you there. I'm short on time, and I want the answer I want each candidate to be able to fully answer that. Marisa, let's start with you. Tenants being forced out of their rental accommodations because, as Brenda says, the rents are now going up and up and up, and it's become unaffordable.
Okay. Yeah, I do appreciate Brenda's question, and I just want to share that I am also a tenant myself. And in terms of guidelines, I think it's great that we do have the guidelines to put some controls around rent increases.
Are they enough, I think, is what Brenda's asking.
Are the guidelines enough? Well, this is where it requires further conversation with the community. This is where it's important for the local politician to be able to engage the community and find out where the challenges are and see what can be done. Sometimes it involves many levels of government as well, and so that's why it's important to have an engaging conversation and involve all levels in that conversation. So I would love to be able to continue that conversation with Brenda when elected.
All right. Rita Jetty, what about this? Rents going up for a lot of tenants to the point where it's either becoming unmanageable or soon will become unmanageable?
Yeah, I've been hearing that when I'm out on at the doors, that recently the rents have increased, and it hurts because, you know, already these people, they're telling that to make the both ends meet, it is hard because they're paying the taxes, high hydro bills, electricity bills, debt retirement charge, and the owners who own the property, it's hard for them to pay off those bills, high bills. And I do not hear either of our parties talking that they're hearing at the doors about these issues, which is the priority of every single family. And as I said, I will work with all levels of governments and whatever it takes to listen to the concerns and issues and make sure, and I do not rest till I get the things done.
Tim Wally, what about this?
This
is
something
tenants?
that I've experienced as a tenant up till very recently. Expenses are rising. The city is getting more expensive, and I think it's important that we all work together to address this issue. Transit fare is possibly going up. It's just getting more expensive all around, and I think as a related approach, the Green Party has a strong policy on building retrofits and energy efficiency to hopefully bring down some of these costs, which may be passed on to tenants. You know, this is something that we take very seriously at the Green Party. Definitely.
Peter Tabuns, what about this issue?
Well, Dale, I've I've been getting more of that coming up in the riding. In fact, last year I worked with 2 tenants associations who are dealing with above the guideline rent increases. I think it's time actually to start mobilizing again in the tenant community to reshape those laws so that in fact the benefits to landlords is recognized as well as the needs of tenants. Tenants do feel squeezed. They feel squeezed by having hydrometers put into their units, units where they're not going to be able to decide what the appliances are, or what the lighting systems are, or what the energy efficiency systems are. And I think that Brenda's raised a good point, that tenants feel very squeezed and they're going to need a government that's going to be on their side.
You touched on something, the so-called smart meters. A lot of people get very annoyed when they talk about them and about having them in their homes and what it's saving them, if much of anything. Tim Wally, let me ask you about that.
Well, I think the Green Party approach, as I mentioned, I think the way that we're going to deal with our energy costs is really conservation, reducing consumption, energy efficiency, and building retrofits, and that's how we're really going to deal with these rising costs in households. And we have a tax incentive plan to make it easier for homeowners to carry out these sort of retrofits.
But I guess I'm really asking about time of use metering, which is really what's behind smart meters. Is that the way to go, as far as you're concerned?
It's a strategy which is, there's some controversy to it. I mean, I think strategies that encourage less consumption of energy are...
So that's a yes?
You know,
partial yes?
Yeah,
qualified yes?
Yeah, I think that we see it as one approach,
okay.
But there's many other approaches that we would
Peter
take.
Tabbins?
We plan to review them, Dale. I've looked at the Environmental Commissioner report on time of use rates. The expectation is they would reduce peak electricity demand in Ontario by about 1%, and that's for residential, which is 30% of energy consumption, so a negligible amount.
Yeah.
They're in there. We're not going to rip them out. We're going to have to figure out what to do with them.
What about you, Marisa? It was your government that brought them in, so I guess you like them.
Yeah, and I just want to say that conservation is a big piece of the equation when we look at energy. And the more we can do to bring education and awareness around conservation practices, then the more...
And smart meters do that,
and
right?
I think smart meters is one of those vehicles.
Okay. What about smart meters, Rita?
Yeah, we're going to unplug the smart meters, and we'll end the mandatory time of use pricing. We will stop forcing families to be showered early in the morning, and the seniors wait until late night to do their laundries. And
well, you're going to make it optional, right?
Yeah, that will be an option. If they want, they'll have a choice. If they want to use the smart meter, they use, or if they want a regular flat, they could go.
Has the party done any calculations in terms of how much money might be saved, or what kind of money we're talking about here?
We're looking at the smart meters forced our homes at a cost of more than $1 billion.
Well, that's the...
Yeah, so...
Didn't cost me that much. I mean,
yeah,
for an individual family or an individual person. Do we know some of those numbers? Or?
I don't have the right numbers on this, yeah.
All right. Time now. Sadly enough, you know, time passes quickly, doesn't it? Time for some closing thoughts. Let's begin with Tim Wally.
Well, I just wanted to say first, Dale, it was a pleasure to be here today and tonight, excuse me, and I've really enjoyed this this debate. As many people may not know, the Green Party is one of the strongest parties in this riding. We were in a virtual third place in the last election. So but we're also at a point where we have credibility, where we have history, where we have a lot of support. People I meet at the door say, we love the Green Party, we're not sure you're going to get in this time. If we don't get in this time, we're going to get in next time in this riding. This is a great riding, and we would work very hard for your support. So,
Peter Tabbins, your final thoughts?
Thanks, Dale. We've had Liberals in power now for 8 years. We've had deepening economic problems. We have an electricity system that has not been dealt with properly. The NDP has a program that will put people first and actually make life more livable in Ontario and in Toronto Danforth.
All right, thank you. Marisa Sterling.
Yes, well, thank you very much. And I just couldn't be happier than to have a chance to talk with the viewers tonight. And it needs to be clear, this is a very serious time and it deserves a serious plan. We really need to have leadership in this province, and that's why I'm so proud of the McGuinty record over the last 8 years in terms of strong leadership and strong results. We just can't take a risk actually in this election. We need to make sure that we vote not just for great local representation, but we vote for strong provincial leadership. You need to know that I do have the technical knowledge, I have the governance, community, and volunteer experience, and I'd be more than pleased to be your MPP.
Thank you very much. Rita Jetty, your final thoughts for this evening, please.
Yeah, this election is all about the change, and the change that will bring more money in your pocket and relief to the families, a change that you deserve, like health care, education, and the change that will clean up the government, eliminate waste, frauds, and secret deals. And I will work hard for you and make sure that your concerns are not only heard, but they are acted upon. And I assure you here at this forum that if you give me the privilege of representing you at Queen's Park, I will not rest until I satisfy the aspiration of residents of Toronto Danforth.
Thank you all very much for coming in, from taking time out from your door knocking. Remember, O'Connor and Don Lance, focus on that area as you try to knock on all 44,000 doors. That's it for now. Coming up next, we'll have a few words from yet again another candidate in Toronto Danforth. So stay with us for that right here on Rogers TV's Local Campaign.